I'm gonna make a video right now talking about what it's like to be a teacher who has a stutter. You might not know this, but adults who stutter, AWS is the acronym, is a term. So it's a thing. Stuttering is a condition that a lot of younger children experience, but about 80% of folks grow out of their stutter. For the other 20%, that doesn't happen. They become adults who stutter, AWS. More males stutter as adults than females as well. Being a teacher who uses his voice every day, obviously having a stutter is a bit of a challenge. It's a bit of an impediment. A stutter is often called a speech impediment. And while I don't really agree with that language or that language of scarcity or that language of handicappedness, I do agree that it is in a lot of ways an impediment. It's a barrier. Think about why you developed language, why you wanted to speak as a child in the first place. You speak as a child, you learn how to speak as a child because you want to reach out to other people, bridge that gap, make a connection. Speech is a social technology. It's a way that we can really bridge the gap, get rid of this like existential dread, these feelings of isolation and loneliness. And we do it through speech. Not having access to an ability to fluidly, easily do that with other people in this very ethereal, off the cuff way that is speech, right, is a difficulty. Now, there are ways to compensate, right? I think that my vocabulary and my empathy are two ways that I have compensated for having a stutter. I think my vocabulary has developed because over time I have had to think of alternatives and stand-ins and auxiliary words that aren't quite what I want to say, but that nevertheless express approximately what I'd like to say. And when I anticipate a stutter, when I view it on the horizon and I see it as about to happen, I'll say, oh, well, I'll switch that word out and switch this word in. And it'll be awkward and clumsy and ungainly and all that stuff. But it'll work. It'll do the trick, right? It'll do the job. I think that's a pro of having a stutter. I have a pretty big vocabulary. I'm not trying to brag. I'm just stating a fact. And this big vocabulary, whenever I write, gosh, it makes me sound so pretentious. And when I speak, I am sure it makes me sound pretentious too on these videos. But when I'm speaking to other people is where I experience a stutter. So you'll probably notice that I'm not really stuttering a whole lot on these videos, and that's because there's no one in this room. It's only me. I'm all alone. And so a switch in my brain hasn't been flipped. Sort of the social consciousness switch hasn't been flipped. I'm not aware of others hearing what I'm saying, and so I can speak as though no one were here. It's not that I have anxiety around others being near me and anxiety around other people judging me, because I am beyond that at this stage of my life, but it is just a purely, it's like a neuronal impulse switch thing where if you're in the room with me and I'm talking to you, I struggle to talk. My stutter takes the form of a block. So a lot of folks will repeat an initial consonant or a vowel sound, but my stutter is more of a block. So I'm just not even able to begin the word. The way that I like to think of it is I have a very small wheel or gear, and that is the device used to start a word, and it is attached to a larger wheel or gear. And when I'm trying to start the word, my little gear, it slips and it struggles and it stalls out and it just isn't able to turn the bigger gear in my brain. And once I have the word started, I can usually muddle through it and I can usually make my way through it. But it's just the starting of that word. Now, everyone's stutters manifest differently. Why do I have this job where I have to speak and where I have to display my stutter every day to other people in a potentially awkward and embarrassing way? I think why I'm a high school English teacher right now is because I have a lot of, I wouldn't say it's strong trauma, but it is definite trauma associated with my time in school and my anxiety about having to speak in front of other classmates and they're judging me, because kids are definitely cruel. They are cruel. Adults are cruel. Humans are cruel, right? But also at their heart, they're kind. You just have to get beyond that sort of cruel, reactive layer at the surface, and then deep down, everyone just wants to be loved, right? I think why I'm a teacher is because I want to reclaim a lot of that. I want to go back in history and sort of rewrite history. In a sense, I'm like Heathcliff rewriting history, but hopefully without the violence and the horrible treatment of a younger generation, because that is a key of why I'm a teacher. Is I don't want to inflict that anxiety on my students. I don't want to be a facilitator of fear. I don't want to inculcate those sort of feelings of anxiety in my students at all. I don't want school to be that way for them, as it was in part for me as a child. I like to hear myself talk. That's why in part I make these videos. In high school, I had this habit, this practice where every day after school I would go for a walk in my neighborhood or in the park behind my house. And while I was on this walk, I would talk to myself, and I would talk to myself quietly so I wouldn't look, completely insane or crazy. Or I would do it because I like to hear myself talk. And I think through speech, I can really think about and establish who I am as a person. Those were really empowering moments for me as a kid. Regarding empathy, I think having a stutter has made me have to confront my limitations daily, every day, numerous times every day. I probably stutter dozens of times every day in front of other people. I'm not infallible. I'm not perfect. I am not immortal. The recognition of that, the recognition of the fact that, yes, I have some positive attributes and some good qualities, but I am incredibly limited in others. I think that allows me to be more empathetic with other people. Yeah, so that's what it's like being a teacher with a stutter briefly, I guess. I don't know if this is helpful. I will say, if you have a stutter, don't give up, obviously. There is hope. It's not a death knell. It's not a curse. You can do a lot of different, wonderful, beautiful, amazing things in your life. You just have to be a little bit more creative about it. You just have to have grit, and you have to have optimism, and you have to be able to say, yes, I can't do that, but you know what I can do? I can do this, and I'm going to do it. And so approaching your life in that way, with that mindset, I think is important, regardless of the struggles and the challenges and the impediments that you face along the way. So that is my preachy talk. And I do appreciate you. That's a dumb pun. I do appreciate you stopping by, and thank you for listening to what I have to say.